Good morning, and thank you very much for coming to Toronto Police Headquarters. Today, I'd like to introduce to you Acting Inspector Joanne Rudnick of Sex Crimes and Detective Ali Ansari, also of Sex Crimes, but the cold case section, who will be speaking to us about 3 cases.
Thank you, Victor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending Toronto Police Headquarters. I'm Acting Inspector Joanne Rudnick of the Toronto Police Service Specialized Criminal Investigations Sex Crimes. I would like to update the media and the public on 2 sexual assault cases. Then Detective Ali Ansari from our unit will make an announcement on Project Timeless, a cold case review initiative that has garnered an arrest 25 years after the attack. On Friday, November the 6th, 2015, a few minutes before midnight, a 28-year-old woman was walking in the area of Yonge Street and Alexander Street when she was grabbed by the suspect, who put a handgun to her head. The suspect then bound the woman's hands behind her back and forcibly walked her to a secluded area. Once at this location, she was sexually assaulted. The attack was interrupted by 3 men exiting a cab in the vicinity. This caused the suspect to flee south from that location. These 3 men offered the woman assistance and contacted police. An investigation was commenced, and with the assistance of 51 Division personnel and other community partners, we have now identified Brennan Wayne Geig, 45 years of Toronto, as the suspect in this attack. A warrant has been issued for his arrest. A photograph of Brennan Wayne Geig is to my right. Brennan Geig is alleged to have committed a number of criminal offenses, including sexual assault with a weapon, weapons dangerous, forcible confinement, utter threats, and breach probations, along with other numerous firearm-related offenses. Mr. Geig now stands wanted for these charges. Geig is known to the police. He is a Canadian citizen and resides in Toronto. He is known to frequent the downtown core of the city, and he is considered by police to be violent, armed, and dangerous. In addition to the safety of the public, police are also concerned about Geig's own safety. Mr. Geig, contact your lawyer and make arrangements to turn yourself in. If anyone has any information that could assist us with this investigation or with locating Geig, I would encourage them to contact us at Sex Crimes at 416-808-7474 or at Crime Stoppers as soon as possible. If you've been a victim of a sexual assault and have decided not to contact the police, I appeal to you to seek help and assistance from community agencies for support. In closing, I'd like to thank the members of 51 Division and the community who have come forward with this information, leading to the very quick identification of this man. I'd also like to thank my investigators who have worked tirelessly around the clock to identify Geig. Hard work, perseverance, and dedications are qualities that never grow cold. Thank you.
Was DNA part of your investigation? And clearly, judging by his picture, he's had interaction before. Tell us about his history prior to this offense, and if DNA was part of your investigation, and did that help you identify this gentleman?
In a sexual assault investigation, DNA is always a part of our investigation. We're always seeking to have DNA evidence. That is still something that we haven't yet obtained yet, but certainly we're moving towards in hopes that we have that type of evidence. As far as his background, he is known to us. And we'd like him arrested sooner rather than later.
So
Violence?
if it wasn't DNA in this case, how were you able to identify him?
We were able to identify him through information that came in from community members, as well as some pretty smart police officers in 51 Division.
So like witnesses?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does he have a previous history of sexual offenses?
No.
What type of offenses has he been involved in, and were they violent in nature as this one?
He is known to be violent. He has been involved in other violent offenses, but sexual assault was not something that he's been involved with before, as what we know.
Gun crimes as well, past gun crimes?
I don't have information on that at this time.
You had concerns for his safety as well. Does he have issues of mental health issues?
Does have some issues of mental
suicide
health.
risk?
We have a concern for his own personal safety, and that is one of the reasons why we're making the appeal, asking for public. If you've seen this man, take a look at his face. If you see this man, call us right away. Don't approach him, call 911 right away.
Sorry if you touched on this already. Is he out on bail or anything like that?
No, he's wanted. He's wanted for these occurrences.
Does he have a fixed address, or is he sort of a shelter system living on the street? What's his status?
He has a bit of both.
So you're concerned for his safety, so can you be a bit more specific on mental health issues that would make him a harm to himself?
No.
How's the victim?
The victim did suffer some minor injuries. She has been offered assistance and is taking that assistance. We have been in contact with her, and she knows that, that this person is now wanted for the attack.
When you said secluded area, can you just describe more? Like, was it an alleyway, a wooded area?
It was an area in the Yonge and Alexander area of the city. You know, along apartment buildings and residential areas along that area of the city, and it was in that area that he took her.
Can you say on what specific street the victim was walking in what direction?
She was walking on Alexander Street, and she was walking east.
I mean, I know we don't use the term, rape or those things anymore. I mean, in the continuum of sexual offenses, would this be on the lesser scale or on the more serious scale?
Well,
I know we all consider there's a lot of...
I consider all sexual assault serious. As I said, the 3 men that arrived in a cab interrupted the assault, and he fled.
So we're looking something on the higher continuum of the spectrum of offenses?
She was sexually assaulted, sir.
Where did they get out of the cab specifically in relation to the building?
At the rear of the building.
Are there any leads to his whereabouts?
Well, we have received a few tips of last night that we're following up on, but we're hoping that this media conference this morning will certainly garner more interest, more people looking at that. Obviously, his picture going out on social media, I'd ask people to retweet his picture, because the sooner that he's arrested, the better off for everyone concerned, including himself.
But can you say, you said that he bound the victim's hands?
Mm-hmm.
With what? Did he have something ready to do that, or was it sort of an improvised thing? What did he bound her hands with?
He used an item to bound her hands, but I'm not going to go into the specifics of what that was. He used an item to bound her hands, but I'm not going to go into the specifics as to what.
Did he have it with him when he attacked
Yes.
her?
Further questions on this one?
Okay. The second case. On Sunday, September the 27th, 2015, at approximately 5:30 in the morning, a 19-year-old woman was waiting for a bus in the area of Kipling Avenue and Birmingham Street in Toronto. That is within the boundaries of 22 Division. The area was essentially deserted at the time. It's alleged that Temi Tulp Michael Lusogo surprised the complainant from behind, covered her mouth, and dragged her into a secluded location. The woman was sexually assaulted. He eventually gave up control of the victim and fled on foot. She suffered minor injuries as a result. Police were immediately called and an investigation commenced, which included the gathering of evidence. This evidence was submitted to the Center of Forensic Science for DNA analysis. On November the 6th, 2015, investigators identified Temi Tulp Michael Alusoga through DNA evidence as being responsible for the attack. Later that day, Alusoga was arrested without incident and charged with sexual assault and uttering threats. Temitulp Olusoga is set to appear in court this morning at 2201 Finch Avenue West for his bail hearing. Photograph? We don't have a photograph. I can tell you that Mr. Alusoga is 30 years old, resident of the City of Toronto. In closing, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the assistance of the Center of Forensic Science, officers in 22 Division, and the community who assisted in this investigation. And as I said earlier, if anyone has information that could assist with this investigation, I would encourage them to contact us. Thank you.
Yeah, you already, to make a match, you already have to have a sample on file. What sort of offenses was he previously charged and or convicted of that warranted a submission of a DNA?
He was known to the police. I don't have that information at this time.
Was it did he have to provide it, or was it a
Yes,
voluntary
he would have to
discard?
have provided it.
Okay.
Was he listed on the sex offender registry?
I don't have that information at this time.
Possible to find out?
Yes, yes,
There's previous offenses in Toronto.
yes.
What type of offenses, I mean, just in general terms, what type of offenses would lead someone to have to provide a sample? Sexual offenses, violent offenses?
Yes.
What type?
In Canada, you have two sections. You have primary and secondary offenses. On primary offenses, under the criminal code, that is an automatic, that the person, once found convicted, must provide a DNA sample. On secondary offenses, the lower offenses, it's when Crown makes an application and must obviously give cause to a judge or a justice that it is required. And it's up to that judge or justice to then make that order. Now, how or which category he was in, I don't have that information at this
It's
time.
fair to surmise that these would be more serious offenses to warrant?
On primary, when it's an absolute, once you're convicted, you must give a DNA sample. Those are the serious offenses. Yes, you're correct.
How long does it typically take to go through samples if it was collected on September 27th and you got the data on Friday?
That is not unusual time span, given the Center of Forensic Science are our partners. They have a lot of work to do too. They're as busy as we are, and that is not uncommon time frame to wait for analysis to come back.
And in
Where was
both
the suspect
instances,
I believe at his home
Where's that?
in Etobicoke.
Can you give a general intersection? Or?
No.
in both instances, women were grabbed from behind. Is there any tips you can give to the public about safety?
You know, we talk about being aware of our surroundings. When anyone, man or woman, is out in public at night, should be aware of your surroundings. We all too often are on our phones. You know, how many of us, and I do it too, you're on your phone, you're checking, you're calling, you may be listening to music. We always have to be aware of our surroundings when we're out there, man or woman.
Sorry, so was this victim doing something like that? Was the victim distracted?
Which
Was
case
some-
are you talking
Yeah,
about?
this one here.
Okay. No, she was waiting for a bus.
But was she distracted with something?
Not that I'm aware of one.
And, sorry, she was waiting on what specific street?
She was waiting at Kipling and Birmingham.
So on Kipling.
Yes.
I would imagine in your career you've spoken to a lot of offenders. Paint a picture. What are they looking for when they select a victim or a target? What
It
do they look
varies
for?
between offenders, you know. Certainly one of the things that we look at and we study in the sex crimes unit is victimology and what are some of the characteristics that certain offenders would be looking at, but it depends on that particular offender and what that offender has as a fantasy or whatever. So I really can't speak to that because it would vary.
You were saying that the victim was dragged into this secluded area.
Yeah.
I'm not always familiar with what's around there. Maybe you could paint a better picture. What was it? Field? Was it amongst residential buildings?
I believe it was an alleyway behind some residential properties.
Any further questions on this one? Okay, you can give me 1 second to mark this.
Yep.
Detective Ansari?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you taking the time to come here. Acting Inspector Joanne Rudnick referred to Project Timeless. It's a review process of the cold cases and sex crimes unit that has been underway for the past few years. The cold cases are reviewed with an eye towards attempting to solve them by taking advantage of the advances in DNA technology, improvement in fingerprint technology, and reaching out to our justice sector partners and agencies. Today, I want to talk to you about a 1990 cold case of sexual assault, which was reviewed as part of Project Timeless. It is reported that on July 27, 1990, at approximately 11:50 p.m., a lone female was sleeping in her ground floor apartment in the area of Millwood Road and Overley Boulevard. At this time, a male entered her apartment using an open window. He then attempted to choke her, threatened to cause bodily harm to her if she did not comply, and then sexually assaulted her. The male then fled the scene. Police were called and an intensive investigation ensued. Even though physical evidence was located at the scene and from the woman, the investigation failed to identify the perpetrator. In 2002, a cold case review project, again, earlier than what I was just talking about, was undertaken by the Toronto Police Service Sex Crimes Unit, and this case was one of those cases. We were able to, through Center of Forensic Sciences, to develop a DNA profile of a male, and that DNA profile was uploaded to our National DNA Databank in Ottawa. In 2013, through Project Timeless, this case was reviewed again due to the incredible improvements in DNA technology and fingerprint technology, and a suspect was identified. With the assistance of the Center of Forensic Sciences, Interpol in Ottawa, and Manchester, United Kingdom, and Cambridgeshire Constabulary, the investigators were able to obtain further physical evidence in order to confirm the identity of the suspect. In May 2014, the suspect was identified as Austin Wycliffe Thomas, 49 years old, from the UK, but previously from Toronto. In July 2014, a Canada-wide warrant for Thomas's arrest was issued in Toronto. The extradition process was commenced, and the United Kingdom authorities were contacted and agreed to extradite Thomas back to Canada. On November 10, 2015, investigators returned Thomas to Canada on the following charges. One count of break and enter and commit an indictable offense, sexual assault causing bodily harm, overcome resistance with attempted choking, and threatening bodily harm. He will appear at College Park Courts this morning for a bail hearing. I would like to thank the Center of Forensic Sciences, Interpol Ottawa, Cambridgeshire Constabulary, especially the members of the Parkside Police Station, Scotland Yard's extradition team, and Air Canada. Without the assistance and cooperation of these agencies, this case may have remained unsolved. Thank you, and I will take some questions.
How has the gathering and preservation of DNA and fingerprints changed in the last 25 years? What do you do differently now?
The gathering of the evidence hasn't changed that much. We have been practicing the same procedures from before, and that's why we're successful. We still have the evidence in our Property Bureau, and that's why we were able to send it to the Center of Forensic Sciences to get that DNA profile developed. What has changed a great deal is the DNA technology. These days, the Center of Forensic Sciences can do magical things. Very little DNA is required to bring a profile out of a piece of clothing or part of the sexual assault evidence kit. And there are even more things that we can learn from DNA. There are new technologies like the phenotypic DNA analysis, where we can get ancestry background, color of hair, color of eyes, that we could use in specific situations. Not in every case we would need such information, but we could if we needed to. And also the fingerprint technology has come a long way. Just like computers have come a long way since the 1990s, our software for comparison of fingerprints have advanced greatly. And what was not able to be matched back in 1990 will produce a match in minutes now.
When did he move overseas?
I'm sorry?
When, do you know specifically when he moved overseas?
He left Canada about 2.5 months after this incident.
Was he going there anyway, or do you think this was to, you know, escape being caught?
He was sent back.
Okay, so he was from there originally
He was originally from the UK, yes.
and sent back under what circumstances?
He was deported.
So why was he deported?
I can't get into that.
Was he here illegally?
No, he was not.
So was he deported for a crime other than this?
Yes,
What was it?
can't tell you. We can't get into the background of the person.
Okay, so he was known to police before this incident?
He was known to police,
He was
yes.
convicted of something, obviously.
He was known to police.
Do you worry?
How are you able to match his DNA? Did Toronto police have his DNA on, like, was his DNA on a server here or over in the UK?
Well, we had a crime scene sample here on the National DNA Data Bank.
But I mean his DNA to match it.
No, we did not have his DNA. That's why our colleagues at Cambridgeshire Constabulary were essential to this investigation and what they did for us there.
So you got the sample of DNA from the police in the UK. Why would you be looking at, what led you to him in the UK? I mean, if you didn't have a sample of his here, and you're comparing it to something you gathered in, 25 years ago, what brought you, investigative steps took you to the United Kingdom? Did they have a sample of his there?
Well, I can't speak to there. They have privacy laws that prevent me from going into where they have their sample or they don't have a sample on him. But our investigation here, prior to DNA, had made Mr. Thomas a suspect in this case. And if you remember what I said at the beginning, the DNA technology and fingerprint technology have come a long way since then. So
So the sample here was confirmed by a sample that was on file in the United Kingdom?
that's not entirely correct, but
Okay, so
it is close enough. I'm sorry?
When did he become a suspect to Toronto police? Like back in 1990 or was it?
No, he became a suspect in 2014.
Has he got a record in the UK? Can you say that much?
He's known to police there as well, yes.
In a good way or a bad way?
I don't know if there's a good way of being known to police when we're talking about these types of cases.
Do you worry in that span after this particular incident, between this particular incident and him moving, there could have been more victims along the way?
In those 2.5 months that he was here, there could be. We don't have any reports that we can link to him. But again, the reason why we're putting his picture up, that's a 1987 photograph, and this is the present day. If anybody recognizes him from the 1987 and they're a victim of anything by him, we welcome them to come forward and report it, and we will investigate it.
How long did he live in Toronto before you left?
He was here approximately 12 years.
Has the victim been notified?
I'm sorry?
Has the victim been notified?
Yes, we always do that first.
What was his response?
She was very happy.
Any convictions in the UK?
He's known to police there as well. That's as far as I can go.
So, sorry, there's some lingering confusion on my part, and I apologize. But you were saying that you did not have any DNA from this suspect here, that the DNA you got was from the UK. But what was the single or multiple pieces of evidence that linked, that said to you guys, this is our guy? You mentioned something about fingerprint, not fingerprint, physical evidence. Maybe it was fingerprints, but what was it that tipped you off that this was your suspect?
At the beginning, a fingerprint evidence
Fingerprint evidence.
led us to believe that he's our suspect, and then was confirmed with DNA. I'm sorry? Yes,
Okay.
from the scene.
And you weren't able to make that connection, you said until last 2014, that fingerprint, sort of that tip.
Right, when I started the second review in 2013.
And that fingerprint evidence has been kept on file this whole time.
Yes,
And through the advancement in this technology, then finally it looked at it and said, oh, wait. And it led you to him.
that's correct.
Just in general, last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, Toronto police made another cold case arrest related to 1990. Is it just in the last couple of years that this forensic technology has changed? And do you expect or hope that more of these kinds of arrests are made?
As I said, this review process is an ongoing process. We look at one case, and there may be things to be done on that case. There may not be. There are cases where, for example, the DNA profile is not a complete profile from back in 1990s. We can attempt to resubmit the evidence to the Center for Forensic Sciences in the hopes of getting a full profile. A full profile is a much better instrument to run against the National DNA Databank to get a hit. Sometimes we don't get a hit, even though we have the offender's DNA in our case, because they're not on the databank. And if they do something serious and their DNA gets put on the databank, then we get a hit. So in this case, there was no such hit.
Was this suspect known to police because of sex crimes when he was in TO before this happened?
I can't answer that. The most I can tell you about somebody's background with police is that they're known to police. He was known to us in 1990.
And he was deported for criminal offenses, correct?
For criminal offenses, yes.
Was there something at the time of the offense, either an accent that led you to believe that this offender was British, an accent or something along those lines? Was that part of what led you to think this might be a British national?
No, the fingerprint match and the subsequent investigation led us to that.
How did he break into the victim's home?
Through an open window.
They didn't know each other at all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes today's conference. The photos will be uploaded onto the web as a news release. Thank you.